Welcome, everybody. My name is Byron Laws, and we're excited that you could join us for the session today. We'll be covering intelligent editorial workflows with Nova Techset and Cambridge University Press. So let's jump right in. So just to kind of give everybody an introduction to what we're going to discuss today, publication speed and retaining quality being the key metrics for journal production. We're going to talk about a case study today that talks about Nova Techset and Cambridge University Press and how we came together in a collaborative workflow to improve on time to publication as well as to maintain quality. And we have been successful doing that. And we'll talk about what we've been doing with CUP for more than a year now. And I'm joined by myself. I'm Byron Laws. I head the Americas region for Nova Techset. And we also have with us today Lauren Mara. Lauren is the head of journals production for Cambridge University Press in the Americas. She has been in scholarly publishing for about 10 years, and we'll be talking about the experience that they've had in using this new workflow. And finally, our subject matter expert on the Nova Techset side, Anthony Keenbright. Anthony is our head of solutions development at Nova Techset and really works closely with customers in implementing technology solutions. So let's jump right in. First of all, a quick overview of Nova Techset and what we do. We provide a traditional set of publishing services, all of the usual stuff there from pre-editing and structuring to copy editing, typesetting, page makeup, data conversion services, graphics creation, manipulation, and so forth. And we handle those primarily for products like journals and books and preprints, online products, things that are being converted to online products. We also increasingly offer a full range of technology services, so hosted web solutions, application development, cloud infrastructure, you name it, anything that is required to get content moving from one part of the lifecycle to another part of the lifecycle, essentially moving content from where it is authored to where it's delivered. Want to focus in a little bit of description on the services that we provide along the technology front, because those are particularly important to today's presentation. First, CC3, so at the bottom of this slide. We call CC3, well, it's an acronym that means contextualized copy editing with 3 levels. And this is essentially an artificial intelligence-based filtration process. What happens is content that is coming in to us from authors is passed directly through a language analysis engine, and it is scored based on a variety of different characteristics. Punctuation, sentence structure, grammar, spelling, etc. And we can assign different weights to these different areas of judging the content. And at the end of it, we arrive at a score that says basically how many errors or how many perceived limitations there are per page. And then based on that, we are able to separate incoming content into 3 different levels. So the best written stuff gets less editorial intervention. The middle of the road stuff gets kind of a middle of the road copy editing treatment. And then the worst written stuff gets the most attention. This allows us to focus our editors on exactly where the most need is. Secondly, EditGenie, which is, as you'll see described on the presentation today, our editorial solution and author review, corrections, and proofing solution. This allows us, using technology, to both do collaborative editing, to auto-paginate content so that it can be viewed by the author and the editor collaboratively, and then also to pass it through the author review stages without having to do a final text setting in the pages. And again, Anthony and Lauren will talk a little bit more about these processes. And finally, Sesame, which is our overall tracking and reporting system. So you can see CC3 as being the filtration mechanism, EditGenie being the master of our technology services, kind of overseeing everything and allowing us to bring a lot of strength and accuracy to the workflow. And then Sesame being our tracking tool, as in open Sesame and showing all the information. So from there, I want to go ahead and tell you a little bit about what we produce and the overall volume of the materials that we are producing using these tools, mainly to demonstrate that these are not things that are brand new to us. CC3 now is used for processing over half of all of our journals' work, and we're producing just over 1.1 million pages a year on behalf of our customers all over the world. EditGenie, which is, as I say, the overall proofing and editorial solution, Almost 50% of our content is passed through EditGenie right now. And Sesame, the tracking system, is growing very quickly with just over 300,000 pages a year being processed and tracked and reported on in that system. We also have cloud-based auto-pagination servers that are in use right now by a couple of customers. That's growing quickly as well. So this is content that the customer has access to auto-paginate on their own once we've got it all set up and the templates are written. And this is, as I say, a really growing area of our business. And finally, we're in the middle of what we think is going to be the future of our business, which is a complete end-to-end production suite that includes copy editing and auto-pagination, all sorts of tracking tools. More information to come about that in, well, over the next 6 to 12 months, I would imagine, as we finish that out and we are more able to talk about that in the market. So that kind of gives you an overview of what we do at Nova Techset. And now let's turn to the case study itself. I'm going to turn over to Lauren for this part of the presentation.
Thanks, Byron. So Cambridge had come to Techset to discuss ways to reduce the turnaround times across the journals that we work on with Techset. After doing some extensive market research within both the academic and scholarly communities, as well as our other competitors in scholarly publishing, we determined that one of the most important things to authors in this day and age is speed to publication. And the quicker that they can get it published, the quicker the research can get out there, and it usually has a lot of ramifications for the authors themselves. So in a sense, we wanted to make sure that we were delivering what our authors and customers were looking for above all else by not sacrificing quality. Some of the main pain points that we had determined in our production process were related around, number one, the level of copy editing and the usage of resources regarding this. So something like CC3 was really interesting to us because we could make sure that the content that really needed a careful editing eye was getting that level of attention. But the content that was really ready to go was able to kind of breeze through that particular part of the process and be able to get into the core elements of typesetting and proofing with authors. We also had realized that there were multiple rounds of author corrections happening, usually because they were done on a PDF proofing basis or even written corrections. And we were hoping to utilize HTML-based platforms to be able to allow authors to directly edit and comment on their proofs. As well, there's multiple rounds of typesetting that happens when you're working in a proof-based area. And so we were looking for ways to sort of bypass that to save a couple days here and there. So when we approached Techset about this, we were hoping to reduce turnaround times overall by about 50%, targeting these core areas and making sure that it made sense for the authors. It was an easy and understandable experience, and that we were still delivering on the quality while also reducing the speed. We have a couple of different HSS and STM titles that we've put into this program, some of which are using more of the copy editing cloud-based services, some of which are just specifically handling the proofing services for this. And we were hoping to see within this case study that we'd be able to reduce turnaround times by up to 50%. So I'm going to turn over to Anthony, and he'll discuss our previous workflow as well as the changes that we made to try and accommodate this.
Thanks, Lauren. So we took up the challenge. The challenge was to reduce the turnaround time by 50%. It was not an easy task, but we loved us being challenged. We took it up. And when we went through the journal Lifecycle, this is what we found. We get the articles from Cambridge. There are a set of processes that are called as first proof, followed by author correction, where author reviews the content, marks them on the PDF. If required, it is sent to the person next in line, who he or she reviews it, and so on. Once the article is back, these corrections are incorporated. And then there is a process called incremental publishing, where these correct updated PDFs are sent back to the author for one more round of review or to some other stakeholder. And finally, when we get an approval, the article is published online. And finally comes the issue management. So what we have to focus here is that from the time we receive the article from Cambridge till ahead of print, this is what we have to focus, and that is what you're going to see on the next slide. So this is the legacy CUP workflow. So here you get how we get the input files from Cambridge, and how the article is published ahead of print. When we break down the individual processes, like, like first proof, author corrections, like an incremental publish, this is what you get. There are different sub-processes that are being done here. For example, once the article is received, there's a process called pre-editing, followed by copy editing. There is a pagination process where the proofs are finalized and then sent to the author for review. Author reviews it, sends it back, NT incorporates the correction. Updated PDF by default is sent to production editor. If required, it is sent back to the author depending on the requirements. This is the default workflow. Now, what we had to focus here is that there are 3 areas that we had to focus. One is how to accelerate the copy editing process. Next, how to generate a good auto galley proof, and how to eliminate number of revisions, or to minimize the number of author corrections just to 1. So these were the 3 areas that we focused, and that is that is what we will address in the next slide. Here's the problem statement, the solution that we are trying to achieve: accelerate copy editing. And when we say acceleration of copy editing, one key aspect what we saw is that the article is taken by a copy editor without knowing the level of copy editing that is required for that particular article. Let's get a case where a junior copy editor or a normal copy editor takes up an article which requires a high level of copy editing, meaning that it's going to take a very long time for that particular individual to complete an article. If the same paper was managed by a senior person or a highly skilled person, let's say in this case a level 5 person, he or she would be able to complete it on time. But how to identify the level of copywriting that an article is required even before opening up the manuscript? So this was a challenge that we had, and that's when we introduced a concept called CC3. It's an artificial intelligence based copywriting process. I wouldn't say it's a copywriting process. It just tells you the level of copywriting that an article requires. It ranks an article based on how well it is written in English. It doesn't look for any subject matter there. It just gives you a picture of how well the article is written. Based on that, it puts in 3 different buckets, and then we will make use of it to map it with the right person. If a well-written article, let's say we get on bucket A, that's a well-written article, it would go to a normal copy editor and the article would just go in breeze. If an article needs a high level of copywriting, meaning the article is not that good written on the basis of language, it would go to a skilled copy editor who he or she would review the content correctly, raise appropriate queries, structure the content for you, and give it to you. What it does is that it reduces the number of reviews in the copy editing process. If it's being done by a junior copy editor, he or she is going to take a lot of time, and that is once again QA checked by a senior person, and then it goes to the next process. Now mapping the article with the right individual on the copy editing stage, sends the article to next stage at a faster turnaround time. So that is what we introduced by CC3. Next, what we had to do is that reduce the typesetting counts and also reduce the number of reviews that is being sent. To achieve that, we introduced EditGenie, where all the corrections, all the copy editing takes place on the cloud platform on a HTML environment. Copy editor raises all their queries there, marks a correction. On a click of a button, it generates you an auto galley, which is around 85 to 100% accurate. And in HSS articles, we get almost 100% accuracy there. And this auto galley proof is sent to the author. So there is no specific waiting time or idle time for a typesetter to generate a PDF. So we almost eliminate 1 or 2 days there on a typesetting process. So the author reviews the content. Okay. So author reviews the content. He directly sees what are the changes that the copy editor has made, reviews the content, accepts or rejects, and any queries that the author has raised, he or she is going to answer all the queries. And one advantage of EditGenie is that it will not allow the author to submit unless all the queries are answered. What we see on the PDF proofing system is that sometimes, let's say like if there are around 20 queries, the author responds to 18 or 19, misses out one key information and sends it back. This forces the production team to raise a query to the author once he or she gets the proofs back after incorporating all the correction, or sends a PDF back to the author requesting that this query be answered. Now, what EditGenie does, it eliminates that particular cycle. There's also one more area here is that on a PDF proofing system, author just marks or marks comments on as a correction, but on EditGenie, the author directly incorporates a correction on the file, meaning that any changes that they make is final and that is just being checked by the relevant team just to match it with the journal style. And it also provides additional features like auto arranging of references, citations, and many more features, which helps the author in finalizing their proof. Once the author is happy, he or she submits a proof, he gets a corrections copy, and depending on the workflow, it will either go to, it will come back to Nova Techset, or it would go to the relevant person in line. It could be production editor, it could be an academic editor, or anyone depending on the requirement. So once the full circle is completed, where author reviews it, it is being validated by different individuals, and then finally it is submitted. So once the final proof or final submission takes place, that's when the actual typeset PDF is generated, which is almost close to the auto galley here, thus eliminating number of cycles that the article is sent to different stakeholders and number of time the article is typeset. With all this in, we get a lot of benefits for which before handing over to Lauren, let me summarize what we had done in this particular process. So what Nova Techset did is that we introduced CC3 process, which filters to whom the article should go, ensuring that the copywriting process is accelerated. So the content is already known, what is the level of copywriting required. Based on that, it would it would choose the appropriate person who will be copywriting the content. Bring in EditGenie process, which is a browser-based copywriting and proofing process, where the copywriter works on the browser, raises any queries, generates galley on the fly, sends it to the author with a click of a button. Author reviews the content, submits it. He also reviews the layout, which is being generated from the EditGenie system, and then sends it back to Nova Techset or to the relevant person. When all the correction cycles is completed, it comes back to Nova Techset, and finally a typeset proof is generated, which is very close to the auto galley PDF. This is the solution that we provided, and Lauren will now give you the benefits that CUP has attained.
Thanks, Anthony. So overall, what we were hoping to see was a shortened production schedule. And by utilizing both AI-based solutions such as CC3 and EditGenie for proof correction tools, we were able to see significant reductions in the amount of time spent on each element of a production stage. It vastly simplified the workflow for us. It made it much simpler to determine what level of copy editing something needed, the amount of resource that something required, and also to make sure that it was as simple as possible for authors to input their corrections and get them processed appropriately. As Anthony mentioned, a huge pain point in the process for any publisher has always been getting the authors to answer all the queries that we need in the initial pass-by stage. And by forcing them to do so within the system, we're able to make sure that there's less resources taken up with corresponding back and forth about particular elements of a paper. We were able to reduce or eliminate, in some cases, multiple rounds of author reviews for proofs. One of the big benefits of EditGenie is the ability to, on the fly, create a new PDF to see your corrections incorporated directly into the article. So authors were much more comfortable with their corrections being properly processed than just sending it out into the ether and hoping for the best. So we were able to reduce that significantly, which was hugely beneficial both to the Cambridge production team at the time, as well as Nova Techset's. Even when multiple reviews were required, though, we still saw faster turnaround times due to the fact that we were able to bypass a lot of the typesetting elements by using EditGenie. So that was hugely beneficial as well. We were able to have an automated system set up to be able to send those revises to authors and have limited resources taken up to do that. The articles are typeset only once at the end of the process, which again was very, very useful in making sure that we didn't have to reflow pages if there were significant corrections that were changed, figures introduced, that sort of thing. So we were able to shave significant amount of times off the production schedules for that. And it did improve the quality overall. To have authors be able to see in real time the changes that they're making was able to give them the confidence that we were processing things to their discretion. The focus on technology for us as a publisher, especially in the ever-changing academic publishing industry, is extremely important to where we're going next. With all new kinds of production workflows, as well as open access options, speed to publication in under 7 days options, all sorts of things, we're really focusing on using technology such as CC3 and EditGenie, along with other tools that our other prepress suppliers have given us to be able to provide a better author services. And if you'll go to the next slide, you'll see that overall, the reduction turnaround times that we were looking for were about met. We were hoping to reduce about 50% of the production turnaround times. And the journals that utilized the CC3 as well as EditGenie's copy editing services saw those reductions. They were huge gains for us of upwards of 40% in a lot of instances. I also included here the final journal that only used EditGenie for the proofing process, because I think that's worth talking about as well. Even if we weren't using something like CC3 that has a journal, especially HSS titles with a more involved editorial team and perhaps a freelancing copy editing service, we still used EditGenie's proofing procedures to be able to get some of the reductions in the turnaround times there. And it still reduced the time by up to 20%. So even if we aren't utilizing every little bit of AI available to us, targeted use of AI can be extremely beneficial to reduce production workflows. We've been very happy with the results that we've seen from TechSet here. And I think it has a lot of implications for where academic publishing is going to go in the future to be able to deliver the best possible author service.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate your subject matter expertise. But basically a formula for success using a new workflow that included some technology upgrades. We were able to achieve mutual success between Nova Techset and Cambridge University Press. We appreciate everybody being part of the presentation today, and we hope that we'll have a chance to answer some of your questions as we finish up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.